ever get that feeling like you're being, I don't know, like silenced online? Like someone's kind of controlling what you see and what you can say. We're diving deep into that today. This idea of a censorship cartel. Pretty intense stuff.
It is.
So we're looking at a recent speech from former President Trump, and he's outlining this plan, right, to tackle what he sees as basically widespread censorship by, big tech. And he's even saying, like, he thinks the government might be involved.
Wow.
He's calling for executive orders, investigations, even a digital bill of rights, like the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's a big deal, potentially.
This is not just some political debate. Like, this could directly affect you, what you can do online, and even your rights.
Exactly.
So to help us unpack all this, we've got an expert in the house who knows, really knows this stuff inside and out. Tech, law, free speech, the whole thing.
Well, the core of it is this balance of power, right? Who gets to decide what you see online? Is it you? Or is it, this handful of really powerful companies? And then, like you said, maybe the government's even pulling some strings.
Okay, so let's get specific. Trump lays out 5 main points. And the first one is a biggie. He wants to ban any government agency from working with organizations to censor, online speech.
So this goes right to the heart of that censorship cartel idea. Like, it suggests there's this blurring between what the government does and what these private tech companies are doing. And we've seen reports, like the FBI, apparently they've been flagging content on Twitter.
Wait, hold on. The FBI telling Twitter what to take down.
That's what's being alleged, yeah.
That's kind of scary, right? Isn't that like a violation of our First Amendment rights?
Well, that's what Trump and his supporters are saying, yeah.
Okay.
They see this as the government basically censoring viewpoints they don't like, but indirectly without going through the proper channels,
So they're using big tech as a way to silence people.
That's the argument, yeah.
So it's not just about what's being taken down. It's about how this makes people afraid to even speak up in the first place.
Exactly, like a chilling effect.
Exactly.
If you're worried about being censored, are you really going to say what you think?
Right.
And that brings us to his second point. He wants the Department of Justice to investigate all this, like these collaborations for potential crimes, violations of civil rights, election laws, even antitrust laws.
So we're talking serious legal stuff here.
Oh, yeah, this is big time stuff.
He's saying this is way beyond just online arguments. This is corruption and abuse of power.
That's the implication, yeah.
So how much power should the government have over what we see online? Are we really free to express ourselves if they're always looming over these platforms?
That's a huge question and a really tough one.
Point 3 is about revising Section 230. Now, I'll admit, Section 230 doesn't exactly sound like the most exciting thing.
Right, not exactly a party topic.
But apparently it's a really big deal for, online content.
It is, yeah.
Can you break it down for us? What is it?
Okay, so think of Section 230 as a shield for online platforms. It protects them from being sued for what their users post,
So if someone posts something bad, it's not the platform's fault. Okay, I get it.
It was designed to help the internet grow, allow for all sorts of voices. Without it, platforms could be sued constantly and might have to shut down,
So why does Trump want to change it?
Well, he argues, and a lot of people agree with him, that these protections have been misused.
Okay.
It's not fostering a free and open internet anymore, they say.
So instead of protecting free speech, it's actually allowing platforms to censor certain viewpoints.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. And without any accountability.
So on one hand, we want to protect these platforms from, frivolous lawsuits.
Right.
But on the other hand, we don't want to give them a free pass to just censor whatever they want.
Exactly. It's a tough balance.
So where do you draw the line?
That's the million-dollar question, and that's why revising Section 230 is so controversial. It gets to the core of how we regulate speech online, If we make changes, will it mean more lawsuit? Will it, kill innovation?
Or will it force platforms to be more open about how they make decisions about content?
Those are the questions, right?
Big questions.
Huge.
Okay, point 4. Trump wants to defund organizations involved in fighting what they call misinformation and disinformation. That sounds, pretty extreme.
It does, yeah.
Aren't these groups trying to protect us from harmful content?
Well, that's what they say they're doing, right? But Trump and his supporters argue that some of these organizations are actually part of the problem. They say these groups have too much power to decide what's true and what's false, and that they use this power to silence viewpoints they don't like.
So they're saying these fact-checking organizations are, like, censoring, too.
That's the argument, yeah.
Yeah.
They say it's dangerous to give any one group, especially one that might be getting money from the government, the power to say what's true and what's not.
That does sound like a slippery slope, right? Like, who gets to decide?
Exactly.
And what if they get it wrong? Or what if they're biased?
Those are big concerns for sure.
Yeah, really big.
It all comes down to trust. Do we trust these organizations, to be fair?
Or are they just another part of this, censorship cartel?
Exactly.
So much to unpack here. Before we go on to Trump's fifth point, I want to dig into some of these alleged examples of, big tech and the government working together.
Okay.
Like, what are some actual instances where this censorship cartel might have actually been doing stuff?
Well, one of the biggest examples that gets brought up a lot is the Hunter Biden laptop story. Just before the 2020 election, Twitter and Facebook, they tried to stop that story from spreading, that it was Russian disinformation.
I remember that. So this brings up some really serious questions about the power these platforms have to, like, influence elections and, public opinion in general. Like, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
And what's even crazier is that both companies later admitted they messed up. They said the story was real and that, yeah, they probably did affect the election.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just throws fuel on the fire for people who already think this censorship cartel is real, It makes it seem like there really is this, like, coordinated effort to control what information we see.
Especially about politics.
Especially about politics. I don't know, it's kind of unsettling. To think that what we know about important stuff could be so controlled by, these forces we can't even see.
Absolutely.
It makes you wonder, like, how often is this happening? And we just don't even know about it.
Exactly. And that's the scary part. That's why this idea of a censorship cartel is so powerful.
Because it plays on that fear of the unknown. What else are they controlling that we don't even know about? Okay, so we've talked about the power of these platforms, the potential for censorship, and even the government's role in all of this.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, yeah.
But the big question is, what can we actually do about it?
That's a good question.
Like, if this censorship cartel is real, and it's as powerful as some people say, can we even fight back? Is there anything we can do to reclaim our digital freedoms?
Well, those are the questions we're going to be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
Hey there, listeners. If you're finding value in our deep dives and want to dig even deeper, consider grabbing a copy through the Amazon link in the description below. And if you're an audiobook fan, you can dive in with a free 2-month Audible trial on us. Our gift to you. It's a great way to support the channel, explore amazing works on the go, and immerse yourself in these thought-provoking ideas. So, check out those links in the description, and thank you for supporting our work. And we'll keep the deep dives coming.
It really makes you think,
Yeah, like, how much is actually going on that we don't even realize? Are there other examples? Like, where big tech might have worked with the government to, suppress certain stories or viewpoints?
Well, there are these reports about the FBI sending what they call information requests to Twitter.
Information requests.
Yeah.
What's that, like a legal thing?
That's the thing. It's not really clear.
Okay.
It seems like they were asking Twitter to take action against certain accounts or content.
So what, like take them down?
Basically.
But if it's not a legal thing, how can they, like, force them to do that?
That's the concerning part, right?
Right.
It seems like these requests were often pretty vague, and they didn't have, like, the clear legal justification you'd expect if the government was really trying to restrict speech.
So it's like they're trying to control things without actually, going through the proper channels.
Exactly, like a backdoor kind of thing.
And that could be a violation of our rights, like the First Amendment and all that.
That's what critics are saying, yeah.
So it's a way for the government to, like, control the narrative without anyone really noticing.
That's the worry.
And that's what Trump wants to stop with his executive order. He wants to make it clear that the government can't just do that. Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. What about, the arguments for content moderation?
Sure.
Like, there are legitimate concerns about misinformation and harmful content online. But how do you decide what's, harmful enough to be removed without also, like, silencing legitimate debate and different opinions.
That's the challenge, isn't it? There's no easy answer.
And it's even more complicated because these platforms are global. Like, they operate in countries with totally different laws about free speech.
It's a mess.
That's a mess, yeah.
So you have these huge companies trying to navigate all this, and it's always changing. It really highlights the need for more transparency and accountability from these platforms.
Right. We need to know how they're making these decisions and have a way to appeal if we think they're wrong.
Absolutely.
I guess this whole debate really boils down to trust. Can we trust these tech giants to be fair?
Right.
When they have so much power?
Yeah, I mean, they control so much of what we see and hear.
It's a big question.
And frankly, I think a lot of people have lost trust in them.
Yeah, especially with all these revelations about the government maybe being involved.
Exactly. It's shaken people's faith.
That's why you see more and more people talking about things like Trump's digital Bill of Rights. Like trying to give people more control over their online experience and protect their rights.
It's about taking back some of that power.
Okay, so what would this digital Bill of Rights actually look like?
Well, Trump talks about a few things.
Okay.
Like requiring the government to get a court order before they can remove your content.
So you'd have a chance to fight back, basically.
Exactly.
Interesting.
He also talks about requiring platforms to be more transparent about their content moderation policies.
So we know why things are being taken down.
Right.
Okay.
And this is a big one. He talks about allowing users to opt out of content moderation completely.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Like just see everything.
That's the idea.
Wow, that's pretty radical.
It is, yeah.
Wouldn't that just lead to like a ton of hate speech and misinformation?
That's what some people worry about.
Yeah, it seems like it could be a problem.
But the other side argues that it's necessary to protect free speech.
Right.
They say people should have the right to choose what they see, even if it's offensive to some people.
It's a tough one, for sure.
It is.
It's like you want to protect people from harmful stuff, but you also don't want to create a system where a few companies get to decide what's okay and what's not. It's about finding that balance.
Right, but it's a tough balance to find.
Yeah.
And it goes back to that core problem we've been talking about.
That concentration of power. Okay, so we've talked about the downsides of this censorship cartel idea.
Right.
But are there any, like, potential benefits?
I mean, there are some situations where collaboration between the government and tech companies might make sense.
Right.
When it comes to national security or protecting kids. Like, if there's evidence that terrorists are using a platform to plan something.
Yeah, that's different.
Right. Then it makes sense for the government to step in.
But even then, shouldn't there be, like, clear rules, oversight to make sure things aren't being abused? We need to make sure it's all transparent and accountable.
Transparency and accountability are key.
Right. Like, we can't just let the government pressure these companies without any justification.
Exactly. And without any public scrutiny.
It seems like finding the right balance is going to be tough. We want to protect our rights, but we also don't want to stop innovation.
Right.
Or prevent platforms from taking down, truly harmful content.
It's a complex issue, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot of discussion and debate.
Okay, going back to the Hunter Biden laptop story for a second. What happened after Twitter and Facebook admitted they made a mistake? Like, were there any consequences?
Well, there were a lot of people demanding accountability, but it's not really clear what happened.
So they basically got away with it.
I mean, it depends on who you ask.
Right.
Some people think they should face legal penalties. Others think the solution is more transparency and changing Section 230.
So the debate's still going on.
Oh, yeah.
And this is probably going to be a big issue in the next election.
Absolutely. It's not going away.
This is a big deal for our democracy, right?
It is. It's about who controls information.
And who gets to decide what we see and hear. We need to be talking about this.
For sure.
Okay, let's move on to the fifth and final point of Trump's plan. The digital Bill of Rights. This is a big one.
It is.
It's about our fundamental rights online.
Right, like the Bill of Rights, but for the internet.
So what exactly is he proposing?
It's about making sure our rights in the physical world also apply to the digital world.
So like freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, all that.
Exactly.
Okay, what are some of the specific rights he wants to include?
Well, he talks about digital due process. It means the government would have to get a court order before they could remove your content or suspend your account.
So, like, they couldn't just silence you without a good reason?
He also talks about transparency and content moderation.
We talked about that before, right?
Yeah, it's about platforms being more open about their policies and decisions.
So we know why things are being taken down. And then there's this idea of opting out of curated content streams.
Right. This one's a bit controversial. It means you could choose not to see content that's been filtered or chosen by algorithms.
So you'd see everything.
Theoretically, yeah.
Wow, that would change things.
It would, wouldn't it?
Some people would love that and others would hate it.
But it's a conversation we need to have.
Yeah, for sure.
This digital Bill of Rights is a big idea.
It is. It's about how we want the internet to work. Like, what are the rules going to be?
And who gets to make them?
Because right now it feels like those rules are being made by, a select few.
That's the worry, isn't it? This whole idea of a censorship cartel. It's about power.
Mm-hmm.
Who has it and who's using it to control what we see and hear.
And whether we even have a say in it.
Exactly.
Well, this has been, I don't know, pretty intense.
It is a lot to think about.
Yeah, it is.
But it's important, right? We need to be aware of what's happening.
And understand the implications.
And be willing to fight for our rights. Because if we don't, who will? It really makes you question, who's making those decisions for us?
Right. Is it really about protecting us? Or is it about something else?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about all these big ideas, government influence, censorship, all that. What does this actually look like in our everyday lives online?
Well, think back to the beginning of the COVID pandemic. Remember all the confusion, all the conflicting information? What you could even see online about masks, treatments, even where the virus came from. It was being heavily moderated.
Yeah, it felt like certain viewpoints were just disappearing, even from doctors and scientists.
Right, if they didn't agree with the, the official line. So it really makes you think who gets to decide what's true, especially when things are changing so fast.
Right, even the experts didn't have all the answers back then. It's almost like a digital book burning or something.
It's a strong comparison, but I see what you mean.
Certain ideas were just erased.
Right, they never even existed.
And that's scary.
It is scary.
Because it makes you wonder, are we really getting the full story?
Exactly. Are we just getting a carefully curated version of events?
And that goes back to this idea of a censorship cartel. This small group controlling what we see and think.
And maybe even manipulating things to get the outcome they want.
It's unsettling.
It is.
To think that our understanding of important events could be so controlled.
It really highlights the need for more transparency, accountability from these platforms.
We need to know how these decisions are being made.
Right, and who's making them.
And what we can do if we think something's wrong.
Exactly. We need to have a voice.
So what can we actually do?
That's the big question, isn't it? If this censorship cartel is real, how do we fight back? It's not easy, that's for sure.
Right.
But there are things we can do.
Okay, like what?
Well, we can support organizations that fight for free speech and digital rights.
Right.
We can contact our elected officials, demand more transparency from big tech. We can be more critical of the information we see online, question the narratives, seek out different perspectives.
Don't just take things at face value.
Right.
It sounds like it's going to take all of us working together to push back against this.
It will.
And reclaim our digital freedoms.
It's a fight worth having. Future of our democracy might depend on it. It's that serious.
Well, you've definitely given us a lot to think about.
I hope so.
This whole idea of a censorship cartel it's complicated and there's a lot at stake.
Absolutely.
But I think this deep dive has been really important.
Me too.
We need to be having these conversations.
Even if they're uncomfortable.
Even if they're hard. The more we talk about this stuff, the more we can hold people accountable.
And work towards a better future online.
A future where we have more control.
More transparency.
And more freedom.
Exactly.
So, that's it for our deep dive into this whole censorship cartel idea. We hope you found it informative.
And thought-provoking.
If you're concerned about the things we talked about today, do your own research.
Stay informed.
And speak out against censorship.
Wherever you see it.
And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.
We'll be back next week with another episode.
So stay tuned.
Until then, keep asking questions.
Keep challenging the status quo.
And keep fighting for a free and open internet.
Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.